What's going on, guys? It's Nick here, back with another video. I've got another breakdown for you guys today. Antonio Gibson versus Miles Sanders. This is one I've come down to a few times, and I've seen it requested a number of times in the comment section, so very excited to dive into this one. Remember, you can submit any requests that you want to see at any position in the comment section below. I'll show on the screen now ones that I have recorded that I'm probably going to do. So if you see yours on there, I already have it in mind, but it doesn't hurt to just suggest your favorite anyways, since I'm going to do the ones that I see the most. It also doesn't hurt. You get 15% off, and that's exactly what you can get right now on the website, thefantasyfootballadvice.com. Just got to use promo code FFA now through the end of April when getting any of the packages on the website. Again, thefantasyfootballadvice.com. Just our way of rewarding the diehards out there watching content in March and April. So you get a little over 2 weeks to use that. And if you're expecting the same thing as last season, you're in for a treat. Definitely upgrade the rankings this offseason. All right, so let's start things off with the stat of the day, and then we'll hop into this breakdown. So Tuesday's stat was which quarterback threw for the most first downs in 2020? The answer is Matt Ryan. Jada HD was first to get that one right on YouTube, and M. John Byrne 99 was the first to get that on Twitter. Today's stat, Jerry Rice holds the record for the most career playoff receptions, but who is second on that list? So most career receptions in the playoffs. Okay, so let's start this breakdown, and first we're going to go over Antonio Gibson, and then we'll hop on over to Miles Sanders after that. So with Gibson, he's entering his second season at age 23, posted a really nice rookie stat line, 795 rushing yards on 4.7 yards per carry, plus 36 receptions for another 247 yards, and 11 touchdowns, all coming on the ground. That resulted in 13.2 half PPR points per game, which ranked 14th among running backs to play at least 7 games. Pretty good for a rookie, but it was actually a little bit better than that if you dig deeper. He averaged 13.2 points per game, like I said, but that includes his 4-snap game against Pittsburgh and his 18 snaps in week 1, when we saw that he was definitely second fiddle to Peyton Barber, especially at the goal line. I don't know if all you were playing DFS back then, but if you remember, Gibson was the min price, and everyone was jamming him into cash, and then everyone was furious when he was being used, and then when they get to the goal line, they're just giving it to Barber over and over and over again. He could have had a really nice game, talking about Antonio Gibson there, but a little bit unfortunate. So he had the 11 rushing touchdowns. Could have had like 13 rushing touchdowns. Had to use them in week 1. But like I was saying, if you look at his points per game, 13.2. That's counting the 4-snap game, gets hurt against Pittsburgh, and then the 18 snaps in week 1 when he was the second fiddle, really. And if you look at the rest of the season, averaged 14.8 fantasy points per game. And that might not seem like a lot, but it would have bumped him up to 9th in points per game, right behind David Montgomery and Jonathan Taylor, right ahead of Gaskin, Josh Jacobs, Carson Eckler, and Miles Sanders. So he had a really, really nice rookie season. Now, one negative is the touchdowns, and you're like, well, that's confusing. He did really good in the touchdown department. I know, 11 touchdowns is fantastic, but is it sustainable? Among the 8 running backs with double-digit rushing touchdowns last season, only Alvin Kamara had fewer carries per touchdowns. And he scored, Alvin Kamara scored the highest rate. That makes sense, he's on the Saints. But Antonio Gibson scored at the second highest rate, ahead of guys like Nick Chubb, Dalvin Cook, Derrick Henry, Josh Jacobs, Kenyon Drake. That's notable because if you look at the list of these players, they played on teams that ranked 10th, 6th, 2nd, 14th, and 13th in touchdowns per game. So it would make sense that they're scoring a ton of touchdowns. And then you look at Washington, well, they ranked 26th in touchdowns per game. So that's just notable because Ryan Fitzpatrick is the starting quarterback. So they might, or at least right now, there's definitely a possibility to draft someone, but we're going to assume that he's the starting quarterback right now. So they might actually trust Fitzpatrick to throw the ball near the end zone. And so we look at last season, they didn't trust anyone. And so when they got close, they were running in touchdowns. They ranked 3rd in rushing touchdown percentage, and that's why they can rank 26th in total touchdowns per game, but have a ton of those be rushing touchdowns because they just didn't throw the ball when they got close. if you transition into Fitzpatrick and you trust him a little bit more, maybe some of those touchdowns turn into passing touchdowns, and that just hurts the upside for touchdowns of Gibson. But basically to say that is, over time, given the volume that he had last season, we should not expect him to score 11 touchdowns. I don't think anyone's really going to debate that fact, is that if he were to get the exact same volume as last season, he's not going to score 11 rushing touchdowns. That was pretty lucky. But there's a flip side to that. This is all given his volume, right? But no one is expecting his volume to remain the same from last season, right? I mean, he played over half the snaps in just 5 games, never going over 65% of the snaps. And if we think about the qualities that make elite fantasy running backs, Gibson checks all of the boxes. He had 20 carries in multiple games as a rookie, so he definitely has carry upside, and we expect that to expand. So he could have a few more games with 20 or 20 more carries. He took over the goal line role. Remember, I was saying it was frustrating in week 1, but pretty much right after that, it was just Gibson's job, and that's how he secured the 11 rushing touchdowns. So he's got the carry upside, he's got the rushing touchdown upside, and he had 3 or more receptions in 8 of 12 games that he played at least 30% of the snaps. So he has reception upside. So he can hit in all these different areas. That's going to give him a very secure floor and access to a top 5 ceiling. You know, those are the players we're aggressively targeting in drafts, especially when they have such an athletic profile, like such a dominant athletic profile. I mean, early 3rd round draft capital is really nice. It's coupled with a 99th percentile speed score, big play upside in college, which is another thing. You know, that was his bread and butter in college. If you guys remember, I mean, we were a little bit scared last season. I'll admit that we were scared about Antonio Gibson. Now, then we see Adrian Peterson leave, we see Geist leave, and it's like, oh, okay, this makes a lot more sense now. We should really be targeting him. Before that happened, it was like, okay, they got this guy early. They clearly like him, but he had 77 total touches in college. We don't know how they're going to use him, right? He had 33 carries and 44 receptions in his college career. So that was a risk. But he was so productive with that workload. So we can say he was productive in college. I mean, he scored 14 touchdowns, 11.2 yards per carry, 19 yards per reception. He was a big play waiting to happen. But the big plays weren't actually that abundant in his rookie season. I think that's like the biggest takeaway here. It's not that we think, oh, he's going to average 6 yards per carry and every time he's getting the ball, he's scoring a long touchdown. But he didn't have that many really big plays in the NFL, which again is surprising because he had so many in college. So there's a chance that he plays more snaps, leading to more overall carries, more receptions. There's a chance that the offense overall improves under Ryan Fitzpatrick, leading to more total touchdowns, offsetting probably the likely regression on a per touch basis for those touchdowns, so he can still remain high in that area. And that he busts off more long plays, leading to a higher weekly ceiling. So if you follow my content, you probably already knew how much I liked Antonio Gibson and that I am targeting him everywhere, but these are just all the reasons why. Everything is pointing to a great season for Gibson. But we still need to go over Miles Sanders because, as you also probably know if you follow me for the last few seasons, I really like his talent as well. And I think that Hurts is going to be good, and so I think this offense can be solid. So Sanders, entering his 3rd season, age 24, so 1 year older than Gibson. He kind of took a step back in his 2nd season. In year 1, he definitely did worse on the ground, but he was much more involved through the air, which we almost prefer in fantasy, right? Like we really want those receptions. So a few reasons for this, but the biggest one is injury, right? Like Sanders didn't play full snaps as a rookie, but he was still healthy. He was still out there. It's, of course, going to hurt his numbers when he suffers the injury last season. So when you're looking at overall numbers, you realize he played fewer games, right? Like on a per-game basis, he still had 72.3 rushing yards per game last season. That ranked 7th among running backs to play at least 5 games. So his production on the ground was actually really solid. And the targets were honestly there as well. He averaged 4.33 targets per game. I marked at Antonio Gibson, who, we were just praising for his receiving game role. He wasn't able to reach 4.33 targets per game. And, he only surpassed that in 4 games. So Sanders was more involved in that area to go along with being more productive on the ground. The big difference was the catch rate. Gibson caught 82% of his targets compared to Sanders, who caught 54%. Now, I don't want to put all of the blame on Carson Wentz because, of course, he's not the only factor here. But he was bad last year, and I don't think many people are going to disagree with me on that point. When Wentz was under center, Sanders only caught 49% of his targets, a pathetic number for a running back. Running back should never be that low. Compare that to 69% of his targets under Hurts. So it wasn't also because of decreased volume. So I want to make this just abundantly clear. You're going to hear, I promise you, this offseason that Jalen Hurts is a mobile quarterback, and mobile quarterbacks never throw to their running backs. Maybe that'll be the case, but we can't say that it has been so far. 3 of Miles Sanders' 5 best receiving yardage games came in the only 3 games that he played with Jalen Hurts. And he was 3rd and 4th. So 3rd and 4th best games in targets as well. Hurts playing quarterback helped Miles Sanders' receiving work. I know it's a small sample, but like I said, you're going to hear, it definitely is a negative impact. We can't possibly say that because so far it's been a positive impact. Yes, there are going to be a ton of plays where Hurts scrambles, and those would have been dump-offs. But that's going to be more than made up for with increased accuracy and just better play overall. I would rather him scramble for a first down, keep them on the field, get them into the red zone, get more plays where you can throw dump-offs instead of throwing, a 1-yard dump-off to Miles Sanders that ends the drive, right? Like we want them to stay on the field. And so, yes, he's going to scramble, but that does not necessarily mean it's going to have a negative impact on Miles Sanders' receiving role. I want to make that very, very clear. Also, we got to look at the signings, right? They signed Boston Scott, they signed Jordan Howard, but we have seen enough from these two, especially in recent years, to know that they are not serious threats. Yes, Scott has the ability to take some receptions, and Jordan Howard might take some goal line work, but it's only enough that's just going to keep Miles Sanders healthy, which is something that we want anyways. I don't want Miles Sanders going out there for 27 touches a game. He's going to get hurt. Let's bring that way down, but keep him healthy for the full season. And it's not like Jordan Howard is going to come in here and take every single goal line carry. It's not like Boston Scott is going to be in on every single third down. We saw last season that was not the case. Weeks 14, 15, 16, when Hurts became quarterback, Boston Scott was healthy, and Jordan Howard was there in week 15. Miles Sanders still averaged 15.3 carries, 4.3 targets per game for 97 yards, 17.8 fantasy points per game. Again, small sample. But we're working off a small sample with Gibson too. I mean, remember, didn't play that much in college. Didn't even play a full rookie season because he was hurt. So I know it's a small sample for everyone, but football is a small sample sport. But regardless of being, super small samples, how have these two performed when they've been given the touches? So Miles Sanders has 14 career games with at least 15 touches. He's averaged 15.7 fantasy points per game in those weeks, scoring below 10 fantasy points in 28.5% of those games. Gibson has 7 career games with at least 15 touches. He's averaged 18.2 fantasy points per game in those weeks, so 2.5 more, scoring below 10 fantasy points in the exact same percentage, 28.5. So assuming that both of these guys get the touches, they pretty much have the exact same floor. They're going to be solid on the ground. They're going to get some touchdowns. They're going to get some receptions. Pretty much the same outcome there. But so far it has been Gibson who has produced more on average. So if it came down to it, both these guys are on the board. Who do I take? Again, love them both. I could absolutely see both of them ending up on my roster. Each of them have, a top 5 ceiling in my opinion because they can each be productive in every single area of fantasy. Neither have any real concerns about competition, and both have some concerns about quarterback play. I love Fitz, I love Hurts, but we do need to be realistic. Neither of them are playing with Patrick Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers, okay? The difference to me comes down to confidence. How sure am I that each of these running backs will put together a running back one season? Because at the end of the day, we need a running back one season if we're taking a running back this early in the draft. And honestly, I have more confidence in Antonio Gibson. I love this kid. And I really think that he has just scratched the surface with what he was capable of last season. Sanders has already been used as a featured back. And while Wentz was part of the issue there, why he wasn't dominating, we can't overlook how last season turned out. Among running backs with at least 7 games played last year, Gibson ranked 10th in fantasy points per game from week 2 on. As a rookie, having barely played the position in college, with a rotation of Kyle Allen, Dwayne Haskins, and Alex Smith at quarterback playing alongside J.D. McKissic, who had 80 receptions, right? And even played more than Antonio Gibson in a number of games. We're expecting his situation to improve across the board. He's going to learn the position a little bit more over the offseason, be more prepared this next season. His quarterback play should improve. The offense overall should improve, leading to more yardage chances, more scoring opportunities. And they're absolutely going to give him more of a workload overall than they did last year as well, probably shifting a little bit of that work that McKissic was getting to Antonio Gibson. Antonio Gibson, in my opinion, is just on a rocket ship to the moon this season. And so I am going to be targeting him every single chance that I can get. And if it comes down to it, him versus Miles Sanders, I'm absolutely now taking Antonio Gibson. So that'll do it for today's video. Remember that if you want to see a breakdown, you got to put it in the comment section down below. Upvote ones that other people have commented that you really want to see. And if I can't get to yours, then you can always check out my answer by looking at my rankings at our website, thefantasyfootballadvice.com. That's the end of this one. Hope you all enjoy. If you did, then how about hitting a like button? And how about subscribing to the channel if you're new? Thanks for watching.